Glorfindel was an older elf, one of the mightiest among them, the lord of the Golden Flower in Gondolin, very capable fighter with great endurance and immense courage, great leader of men, loyal to his king and his brothers in arms, possessing deep medical knowledge, merged with almost angelic presence. He was born in Valinor, in Tirion, in the Age of the Trees, in the House of Princes, related to the House of Finarfin. He was tall and straight, his hair was of shining gold, his face fair and young, and fearless and full of joy. His eyes were bright and clean, and his voice like music. On his brow sat wisdom, and in his hand was strength. Glorfindel's original name was Laurefindel, meaning golden-haired in Quenya. The name Glorfindel is simply a translation into Sindarin, which was used in Middle-earth more commonly. When Noldor decided to chase Morgoth and leave Valinor, Glorfindel followed Fingolfin into exile, taking no part in the first kinslaying in Aqualonde, but otherwise helping in every difficulty, especially while crossing the broken ice of Helcaraxe. Once in Middle-earth, he fought in the Battle of the Lamoth, still in the host of Fingolfin. Later, at Dagor Aglareth, he was in the host of Turgon. After the battle, he moved with him to Gondolin, where Turgon appointed him as the lord of the House of the Golden Flower and one of the king's captains. Glorfindel became very popular and loved in the hidden city, so much so that when King Turgon allowed Aredel to travel out of Gondolin in search for the sons of Feanor, Glorfindel was chosen with Ecthelion and Egalmoth as her escort. Unfortunately, after being denied entrance into Doriath, the escort lost Aredel near Nangungutep and returned to Gondolin without her. At Turgon's side, Glorfindel fought in the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, holding the flanks of the army as the king retreated back towards the pass of Sirion. Afterwards, the host of Gondolin remained hidden, never sorting out again. But Morgoth had not forgotten, and thanks to Maeglin's treasury, found out where Gondolin lies and was thus able to send his armies to attack this last Noldor city. Hordes of orcs, led by Balrogs and dragons, stormed the defenses of the surprised fortress. Glorfindel and his followers defended the city market, wreaking havoc into enemy units, until themselves being surrounded by orcs and ambushed by a fire drake. Glorfindel and his people succeeded in cutting their way out, but orcs were still on their heels. Warriors from the House of the Harp, disobeying their deceitful lord Salgand, joined them at the square of the king. And together these two houses, under Glorfindel's leadership, made their last stand, being one of the last units to resist in Gondolin. Glorfindel kept on fighting, with Tuor at his side, and Egalmoth and Ecthelion, who died fighting Gottmog, the lord of Balrogs. Then the king Turgon was slain, and the rest of the people of Gondolin tried to escape via Idrel's Way, a hidden path through the mountains. Glorfindel was leading the rearguard, losing more and more of his elves in the process. When finally all felt safe, having reached Kirit Toronath, one of the Balrogs came upon the refugees. Glorfindel leapt forward to fight the Balrog and buy the refugees as much time as possible to escape. Because Glorfindel was a very apt fighter, he succeeded in hewing Balrog's iron helmet, piercing its belly and felling it backwards towards the cliff. At the last instant did the Balrog grab Glorfindel by his hair, and so both of them fell into the deep abyss. The body of Glorfindel was broken, his immortal soul departing into the halls of Mandos. The great eagle Torondor later found the body and brought it back from the abyss to the grateful elves he saved with his sacrifice. Glorfindel was buried high on the cliffs of the mountains surrounding Gondolin. Despite its location, golden flowers grew on the mount until Beleriand was broken and swallowed by sea. But Glorfindel's spirit did not spend too much time in the halls of Mandos. Due to his noble deeds, the Valar granted him a second chance. he was re-embodied and lived again in Valinor, being forgiven the curse of the exiles. Many years later, in the year 1600 in the Second Age, Manwe asked him if he would return back to Middle-earth as an emissary of the Valar. Glorfindel agreed, and thus began his second shift in Middle-earth and its troubles. Upon his return, Manwe enhanced his powers, making him nearly as powerful as one of the Maiar. When Glorfindel returned to Middle-earth, he remained for some time in Lindon, with Círdan, Gil-galad, and Elrond, among others. During the wars against Angmar, Glorfindel led the army of Lindon into the Battle of Fornost, himself turning the fortunes and making the Witch King flee. He had a prophetic vision then, saying that far off lies the Witch King's doom, and not by a hand of man will he fall. As it turned out, he was right, as many years later, during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, it was a hobbit, Merry Brandybuck, and a lady of Rohan, Eowyn, who slew this powerful servant of Sauron. In the years after the Battle of Fornost, Glorfindel moved to Rivendell to live in Elrond's house. We have no news of him for the next 1,000 years. Until, when Elrond needed to help Frodo on his way to Rivendell with the One Ring against the 9 Nazgûl, many parties were sent into the wilderness to look for the hobbits. All who could stand against the 9 went forth. Glorfindel rode out alone, as he had no fear of the ring wraiths. He found some of the Nazgûl and chased them away from the fort of Bruinen. Then he found Aragorn and the hobbits. He led them for days, stopping only briefly to let the hobbits rest. When all the 9 Nazgûl gathered together and approached them, Glorfindel put injured Frodo on his white horse, Asfalot, bidding the horse to take Frodo safely to Rivendell. Asfalot outran the black horses of the Nazgûl and crossed the fort of Bruinen, where Frodo, weakened by Morgul knife injury, turned back to defy the Black Riders. When the ring wraiths entered the shallow ford, they were swept away by the torrent of suddenly flooding river, which was under the power of Elrond, helped by Gandalf. Those who managed to retreat back from the current were driven into the flood by Glorfindel and Aragorn, wielding torches. Afterwards, Glorfindel led Frodo and the rest of the company to Rivendell. At the Council of Elrond, Glorfindel's position was the one of honor, alongside Elrond and Gandalf. But his advice to either give the ring to Tom Bombadil for safekeeping, or to throw it into the depths of the sea, was ruled out due to the recklessness of Tom and the possibility of the One Ring's resurfacing after hundreds or 1,000 of years. When it was decided to send a fellowship to destroy the One Ring, Glorfindel was considered to be a member, but his fame and power would be contradictory to secrecy upon which the mission depended. And so he stayed in Rivendell. After the War of the Ring, Glorfindel witnessed the wedding of Aragorn and Arwen, then returned to Rivendell, and in due time sailed back west with the rest of his kin.